when you hear the truth and you recognize it, it's very natural to want to get out of being the ego or the personality, because you realize the gig is up. You realize that to continue to be in that form is going to produce what it already has been producing, which is suffering. So in the teaching, they often talk about the rope and the snake. Is anybody familiar with that?
What?
The rope and the snake? If you were to come across something on the ground and it looked like a snake and you were afraid of it, right? But then you shined the light on it and you saw, oh, it wasn't a snake, it's just a piece of rope. Now, when that goes back to appearing as a snake, are you going to believe it?
No.
Do you get the analogy? Yes. When you see the personality isn't real, that's seeing that the snake is a rope. Right? But the personality is going to come back and play again as if it's a snake. And you guys are smart rats, so you knew the answer, but that's not the right answer. Right? If you're going to be honest about it, do you fall into the trap of seeing a snake? Do you fall into the trap of taking yourself to be the personality? Yeah. Yes, you do.
Sure.
Yes, you do. Okay? And the thing about it is that that's not going to change. You cannot stop the ego. You cannot destroy the ego because you didn't create the ego. You can't create something you can't destroy something you didn't create. Okay? The ego got created just like everything else by the source. Right? Everything got created by the source. Right? The ego got created by the source. And the only way the ego is going to get destroyed is by the source. You can't do anything about it. You can't stop it and you can't change it. So what does that mean? Does that mean that you should just feel hopeless? No. Because the good news is, if the only way the personality or the ego can be seen for what it is, if the only way the personality and the ego can be seen as not being real is from the source, that can only happen from the source, right? The good news is, as they often quote Ramana Maharshi when he was talking to his students about this, the good news is your head's already in the tiger's mouth. You're sitting here in a meditation class and you you've made yourself available to see the truth. Your head is already in the tiger's mouth. It can't go any other way now. It's like a combination lock, right? Once you click to the last number, right, that's it, right? And your presence here is clicking to the last number, right? So you don't have to worry about anything. You're not one of the people who's stuck in the dream. You've heard the truth, right? And since you've heard the truth, if you recognize it and you take it to be the truth, then you're going to live your life in such a way where even though you keep seeing the snake, it doesn't scare you because you saw the truth. Even though the personality keeps playing in your head and producing the fears that it produces and the anger that it produces and all the rest of the mess it produces, all the rest of the craziness it produces, right? You can be aware of that and not be affected by it because you've seen the truth. You've heard the truth, right? Now, you may have to practice that. You may have to practice that. You may have to experience what they call in psychotherapy exposure therapy. What does that mean? It means that you're paying attention to the mental activity consistently enough that even if it scares you and even if it takes your attention and puts you on a trip, right? That you get used to that and the effect stops being real. You know, if somebody's afraid to fly, right, you take them to the airport. And you just have them hang out at the airport and look at the planes for a while and experience how afraid they are, right? After a while, the fear stops. It starts getting, it starts not being a problem because the person starts to realize over time that nothing happened to me by being at the airport. So then you put them on the plane. And when they first get on the plane, they may have a reaction, they may get upset, right? But you've taught them how to breathe to relax the physical body and the nervous system. So they do that, and after a while they realize the plane didn't crash, and the anxiety or the fear naturally starts to decrease. The problem for people who have a fear of flying is that they are not willing to participate in the process, as I just said. Right? So you've got to at least have the audacity to put yourself in the situation. Right? One of the things that I've been noticing recently is I have felt an inclination to talk more about retreats. Why? Well, because when I look in my own process, it's very clear to me that retreats were very powerful and made a distinct difference in terms of how things occurred to me, right? Why? Because everything that you've experienced up until now has been a combination of sitting still and being quiet, right? And listening to the teaching, listening to the truth, which means you have an intellectual understanding of the truth. You have an intellectual understanding of reality, right? If you go and put yourself in a retreat and you start meditating 10 times a day and not talking to anybody for a solid week, right? You put your ass where your head was. Because you will put it to the test. If you really believe, see, this is the deal. If you really believe the truth, if you really accept that the truth is real, if that really has clicked for you that this is the truth and what you believed before this is not true, if that's really true for you, why wouldn't you put yourself in a situation that would that would accelerate the process of getting free? Why wouldn't you do that?
Personality doesn't want to be uncomfortable.
That's right. The personality doesn't want to be uncomfortable, so it'll perpetuate its suffering instead of doing anything about it. That's crazy, isn't it? That's like saying, I know I have a disease that can be cured, but I'm not going to go to the doctor because I'm afraid of doctors. That's crazy. Right? So I'm really asking you to take a look for yourself and see where you're at about that. Is this important enough to you to take time out from your ordinary life and go sit in a situation that's been designed to have you not only have an intellectual understanding, but have an actual experience of it? By sitting there, see, if you're sitting there in a retreat for 7 days and you don't get to talk to anybody, you're not in your normal environment, and you've made a commitment to do this. And you should never go to a retreat if you have the idea that I can always leave. Because you'll leave. Guaranteed you'll leave. The only way to go to a retreat is to have the idea that it's not going to kill me, okay? And it might make a huge difference in terms of how able I am to relax and enjoy my life. But in order for that to be the case, I have to go there and not speak to anybody for a week and sit there and be only with my mind all the time. In other words, you don't get to distract yourself. You don't get to watch TV. You don't get to have a beer. You don't even get to talk to anybody. The whole thing stops. And now you're just going to go and sit still. And when you go to sit still, the voice in your head starts to talk to you about what you're doing. And it's telling you, what the hell are you doing? You're going to be here a whole week and you're going to sit in these meditation practices 9 or 10 times a day? Get out of here. Right? But you've made a commitment and you're going to stay. So you're going to sit with the mind, right? And the mind's going to keep talking to you. Oh, it's only the first day. You have 6 more days of this to go. Oh my God, do you understand what you're going to have to go through here? It's talking to you like that, right? But you just stay seated. You just keep sitting. You just keep sitting. And then you have the opportunity to talk to the teacher and tell the teacher, I'm going crazy. I want to leave. I want to kill myself. And the teacher says, perfect, perfect. Just go back and keep meditating. You know, I was listening to Paul Hederman talk, and he, you know, after you listen to him talk for a while, you kind of start hearing his greatest hits. You know, he starts repeating himself, just like David Radin, just like me. The truth is not, you know, that complicated, right? And he was talking about the fact that he's not talking to you. He's not talking to you, the person, right? This is a very important thing to let yourself see if you can see this, right? He's not talking to you. Why would he say that he's not talking to you?
Because you're never going to get it.
Well, not only are you never going to get it, but that there is no you to talk to. You know, the you that you take yourself to be doesn't exist. So why would he? That's crazy to talk to something that's not real, right? Yeah. That's crazy to talk to something that's not real. And that which is not real can never get it, so that's a waste of time, right? So I don't care. See, when you're here in this class, or if you're somebody looking at these videos, I don't care at all what you think about this. I don't care at all what your reactions to this are. I don't care at all how you feel about this, because this conversation is not being directed to you. It's being directed beyond you. It's being directed beyond you. And when it's directed beyond you, it's possible for that which you really are to recognize. To recognize. That which you really are can recognize the truth, because it is the truth. And the recognition of the truth is just like looking in a mirror, right? It can recognize the truth, right? So if you've had the experience of recognition, if you've had the experience that what is being said here rings true for you, it didn't ring true for who you think you are, it rang true for who you really are, and who you really are already knows this, right? That's why once you get to a certain place in the process, in terms of having a clear distinction between who you took yourself to be and what you really are, once you have that clear distinction, right, and you start to punctuate your experience every day with the reality of what you are instead of just being the personality, right, by resting as awareness for brief moments, right? Once you start to do that, at some point, you could teach the truth because you've recognized it and you know it, right? And you could speak from there. Now, you may not, you know, be a gifted speaker, but still, you could speak from there. You could talk about it in a way that is speaking from wisdom, speaking from an experience, not speaking from just something that you believe. Yeah? Because you're actually experiencing that's what you're talking about. It's not a belief. It's not something that you learn. This is the failure of religion. The failure of religion, although religion is very useful, right? It keeps people behaving themselves, right? But in religion, what happens is you're being preached to about reality. You're being preached to about the truth. You're being preached to about God. You're being preached to about, you know, what's really happening here, right? And if you take that on board as a belief, you're not experiencing it. It's just something that you have faith in is true. And this is the failure of religion, because Jesus Christ was not trying to start a religion. He was trying to wake people up. His conversations with people were intended for them to see their true nature was the same as his true nature. What point would there be in somebody like Jesus or Buddha teaching these things if it was impossible for the people that were listening to them talk to realize it? Right? What point would there be? The reason that Buddha taught and the reason Jesus teaches and the reason people put themselves in situations like I did to do it, right, isn't because I have any say-so in the matter. Something is using me to speak. You know, there are a lot of days when coming here to do this is the last thing I want. You understand? I mean, I'm just like you know, I have bad moods, I have difficult times, you know. But no matter what, I feel I have an obligation that I can't ignore to show up. And when I show up and sit here and I be quiet for a little while, right, something starts speaking out of my mouth. And I go back, when I go back and edit these videos before I upload them on YouTube, when I'm editing, I'm learning from the guy that's talking, and it's me. I'm learning from the guy that's talking, and it's me, right? So what that tells me is there is an experience that you all are having, and if you pay enough attention to it, right, the idea that you're not it will be hard to imagine. If you pay enough attention to the reality of what you are, the thoughts you have will lose their power to keep convincing you that you're something other than that. Do you follow me? Yeah. If you keep hanging around a barber shop, you're probably going to get a haircut. If you keep coming to this class and you keep practicing meditation and you keep taking time out every day to listen to the teaching, right? To allow yourself to bathe in the water of the truth every day, to keep that process alive, right? To keep looking and seeing that the snake is a rope, right? Eventually, the whole idea of looking to see if the snake is a rope or not will be boring. Because you've done it enough times, you're certain you know you're going to see a rope, right? So you don't have to keep doing that. You can just stop. The same thing is true with this whole business of aspiring to realize your true nature. If you understand the teachings, you stop seeking to realize your true nature because it's over already. It's already happened, right? And any thoughts that you have about seeking it, any thoughts you have about changing anything to become that, that's the programming, that's the conditioning trying to pull you back into looking and seeing a snake. When you stop taking yourself to be what you're not, you and the source are the same. That's why I say, stop trying to be different. You know, don't seek to become anything, just relax. You can't do anything. You can't do anything. To understand that you can't do anything means just relax, take the understandings for what they are, and as you're living your life, pay attention in such a way where you can see your inclination, your compulsion, your habit of paying attention to the thinking and the feelings and believing that they're important and they really matter and you have to do something about them. That's a real accomplishment. You know, when you can experience being angry in such a way where at a prior time you would have been cursing somebody out, right? When you can experience being that angry and you're not motivated to do anything, that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
You still see the anger.
Of course.
Feel it.
Yeah, you feel it too. You see it and you feel it.
You still act on it?
Yeah, because you realize that when you feel the anger and you're having the angry thoughts, you think you're looking at a snake. That's what's happening. So all you have to do when that's going on in the mind, right, is realize that's just a rope. I thought it was a snake, it's just a rope. It's harmless.